What's up, folks, and welcome to Indie Ramble. So, I got a new Metroidvania for y'all today, and this one's interesting in a few different ways. At time of recording, this hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and I think it deserves it. So, definitely check this out if you're into Metroidvania stuff. So, this is, I'm calling it Biota. I don't know if it's Biota or just B.I.O.T.A. I have no idea. But this is a new Metroidvania from a very small team and a new publisher that is focused very much on retro-style titles, so you know that's right up my alley. And, well, it's got a few different interesting components to it that I'm going to show you here. So we're going to dive into my game where, as you can see there, I'm more or less about halfway through it. This game is about 5 to 7 hours long, but it's relatively inexpensive as well, which I think is pretty cool. So the core concept is pretty simple. You're landing on an alien planet, or rather a mining colony that has been infected by an alien plague, and you're trying to figure that out. Pretty simple story. And as you can see here, the graphics are a little bit simple too. You know how I like to associate a lot of retro games with, or retro-inspired games with an era, you know, or a platform. So I say like, this is like this kind of thing. Well, this is very much like a Game Boy type of idea. This is a graphic style that we don't see used as often with modern titles because it often tends to look weird when scaled up to a large screen if you're not careful with how you do it. Well, this crew, I think, did a really nice job of it. So we're looking at the default palette right now, but what's really cool is it has a huge number of different variants of the Game Boy sort of idea. There are different 4-color palettes that you can swap through, and there's as many as 30 additional ones you can unlock by finding pickups in the world. And I've only unlocked a handful of them. You can see how many options that we have here. So I was showing you the default one, which isn't bad, but my favorite so far is this one. You can probably imagine why. You know, I'm a little bit into the synth wave. So, what makes this different than a typical Metroidvania? Well, first off, you can choose between various different characters here. And all of these characters have different attributes, different primary weapons, different specialty weapons, and different abilities. You can finish the game with any of them, but you can switch around between what you're interested in here. Now, this character, which is basically a cyborg, is one I actually managed to buy from one of the shops in the game. But all of these other ones here are standard ones. This shotgun guy is pretty awesome, short range, but he wrecks fools. Pretty easy. He's got a shield power-up that you can use. These power-ups, additional ammo for them are picked up regularly when you're playing the game from enemy drops. And there's different black markets throughout the world as well, and they all have different items. And in fact, you have to go to them, to different ones throughout the game to get different items that you will need to progress. So again, Metroidvania style, you don't start off fully powerful and get all your stuff taken from you, but you do start with, you know, a sort of baseline amount of abilities that you have to increase as you go. And that will include things like a mech that you have to use to get through certain levels as well. It's pretty cool. So these are all the different areas that I've unlocked so far. There is fast travel between specific points between each one. And you've got a map system here, which again, as you can see, is very Metroidvania-esque. There is no actual legend in the map, which is a little weird, but you're going to learn fairly quickly what these different symbols mean. It's things like M stands for market, D stands for door, E is elevator, things like that. So, here's where things also get a little bit interesting. So you're going to go through the different areas, and you're going to encounter platforming challenges as well as different types of enemies depending on the area that you're in. Enemies respawn whenever you leave the screen, so if you come back and do something like that, there you go. And you're going to have to progress, you're going to have to backtrack a lot like you do in Metroidvanias in order to get into areas that you previously couldn't get into before. And you're going to fight bosses on occasion, which are, they're not crazy hard, but they're no pushover either. This game is interesting because they've struck a very interesting balance here, in my opinion. I'm just going to sort of take you on a tour of some of the areas that I've been in. I'm actually kind of stuck right now looking for a particular item, so that is another element of Metroidvanias that will happen occasionally in this, is you're going to need an item and not be sure where it is, and you're going to have to really go exploring to find the things that you need. So here's the sort of the starting area here, and there's, as you can see, that both the biomes and environments and the types of monsters that you're going to encounter will vary quite a bit. So where does this thing differ from a lot of Metroidvanias? Well, number one, as I said, you can choose between all these different characters. And the game is finishable between any of them, and you can switch between them pretty much whenever you like. You have to do it at certain points, but you're not restricted to any one character for any length of the game. What's also interesting is that in addition to designated save points, you can do this. Yeah, you can choose to save at any time as long as you are in an area where there is no explicit danger. So there can't be any enemies on the screen, and there can't be any environmental hazards that could kill you that are active in a room. But if that's the case, you just press a button and you can save at any time. Now you might think, well, that's a friggin' easy button. And you know, I thought so too. But disregarding the fact that, I can't save here because there's this insta-kill environmental hazard here. So I thought that too, but what's interesting is two things, which is obviously if you want a greater challenge, then you just don't have to use it. But beyond that, I found it hasn't been that much of a crutch for me, only because I find myself forgetting to use it a lot. If you kind of get into the flow of things and you're going from room to room and you feel like you're making progress, you, at least in my case, and maybe this is just my ADHD brain, I've literally at times forgotten to hit the save button and I've died and been like, oh crap, I just lost like 15 minutes of time. So it's not quite the easy mode crutch you might think it is. I'm sure it could be if you were obsessive with it, and you see there'll be occasional manual save points like this. But I think it's very interesting the way they did that they implemented something that you would think would make the game too easy, but it really doesn't, at least not for people like me. Now, I will say there are Metroidvanias that are definitely harder than this. This is not a walk in the park, but you're not going to breeze through it either. Certainly not. Now, what's also cool is another little, I guess you'd say, quality of life thing, is when you are in the map, you can do... I'm trying to remember the button now. Haha. But what you can actually choose to do is at any time, you can teleport back to your main base. So you see, you have a list of all your different power unlocks and things up here. If you use this first one, at any time, you can teleport back to your main base at the top of the world here. This allows you to insta-heal if you want. It allows you to save. It allows you to change characters. And you can do things like buy refills for your consumable weapons and things like that if you want to go into the shop over here. There's also a little training mode that times you on this. This training mode is no pushover. It took me a number of times to beat it once. There is an achievement for getting under a certain time, which I didn't come anywhere near, so some people are going to really like that. Now, of course, when you come back here, you cannot just instantly go back to where you were before. So you can bail out at any time, but you're going to have to, if you were in the middle of going somewhere and you were concerned that you were going to get killed or something like that, you're going to have to retrace your steps. So that's something to be mindful of. But the nice thing is, so I picked a different class here that's more of a sniper type class, very slow, very powerful. And as you can see, the monsters here are getting definitely a little bit more intense. So there we go. So those are sort of more precise shots. That's what this character's special ability is. So, but it's nice in a quality of life sense in that, see, this is one of the things I have to do. There are multiple vehicle sequences in this. Unfortunately, I'm missing a piece that this thing needs in order to progress forward. So what's interesting though is that you can pick up an item that you like, or that you need, and rather than have to backtrack your whole way back to where you're gonna need to utilize it, you could just teleport yourself back to base and go, okay, here we go. And you just sort of jump, it's a fast travel effectively. It allows you to pick up the item you want, jump back to headquarters, get yourself healed up, teleport back to the area you need it, and off you go. More traditional Metroidvanias definitely sort of relish in the challenge of you having to backtrack, right? So what that means is that, so say you're going, into a far part of this area here, Well, in a lot of Metroidvanias, the part of the challenge is picking up the item that you need and getting back to the other area without getting yourself killed. And that journey is part of the challenge. With you again, you can choose to do that if you want, but the teleport capability that is in this allows you to skip that part if you'd rather not. If you'd rather just get to the point and get things done and not spend the extra time to travel, you can do that. And I like the fact that they've structured it in a way that makes it optional, in a way that people who want that real old school hardcore challenge can do that if they want. They can do that to themselves. You can choose to make things more difficult if you want that. And some people do, and I totally respect that. And I really love the fact that it gives you the choice. I think that's really interesting. And yeah, I like the fact that this is just generally a fairly tight experience. You know, I think they did the Game Boy look extremely well, personally. And it's an interesting place to explore because the biomes are not... They look large from a map perspective, but you can traverse a lot of this area in just a few minutes. So you get that thrill of exploration, which is really nice. I love these fans here. They look very Mega Man 2. I think that's very cool. So here's one of the mech sequences. Now I've already done this bit, but you can go through it again. So it gives you the nice little power fantasy of this part is not particularly difficult. You can die here, but it's pretty hard to. But it gives you that little power fantasy of just, I'm gonna wreck everything here. You have unlimited ammo, you just have clips that have to be reloaded, so you've got grenades and rockets, you know. I like that. It mixes things up a little bit. You don't see a lot of Metroidvanias with actual controllable vehicles in them. So, yeah, this is what I generally am finding appealing about this. Is it still does have challenge to it. It still has the sort of thrill of exploration that you want out of a Metroidvania, but it's got enough quality of life improvements to take out a lot of the tedium that some people may associate with the genre, and I appreciate that. I think that's cool. They don't force it on you. You can choose to make things more hard for yourself if you want that. I could totally see speedrunners having a really fun time with this. You know, doing a 100% run of this would, I think, actually be pretty cool to watch. I generally like how it controls as well. I have had moments where jumps failed where I kind of felt it was due to the game not responding quick enough, but that's pretty few and far between. By and large, my experience with the controls here has been pretty good. I do find the wall jumping mechanic a little strange sometimes in terms of how it works, but you get used to it. Whoops. This character is definitely probably the most challenging of the ones that I've played so far. And I just think it's a really nicely put together Metroidvania done by a very small team who clearly has a lot of respect for the genre and really understands what they were making here and why, you know, it's so and what people really want out of it. I think I think some people probably will be turned off by the very low resolution Game Boy graphics, and I think it's cool. I don't mind old school graphics like this when they're done well, because as someone who grew up in the era of all these different platforms, I like to see them represented in cool and interesting ways in the modern era. And arguably making a Game Boy style game is one of the harder things to do right now, because you're trying to emulate a platform that operated at a very low resolution and trying to make that look good on a modern monitor. Whereas if you're trying to make sort of a more NES or Super NES style game, that's easier to do because you can make the style while still having a much larger amount of pixels to work with, and you don't really get that on this. So I think they did a cool job. I like the visual customization options of the different color palettes. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a neat kind of unlockable to give. Something that makes the experience a little different, but isn't game-changing or anything like that. I think that's pretty cool. In addition to the main mode, like I said, you had that training challenge thing off of the hub area. There's also what's called an arcade mode here. Now, I've only unlocked one of these games so far. I don't know how you unlock the others. I kind of wish it gave an explanation of that. But this is pretty, this is interesting. This is almost like a Hogan's Alley type deal. You're playing the sniper character, and you go through different stages with different kinds of objectives here. So this one, I have to take out the targets as fast as possible. There's other levels where it's kind of like a horde mode, where you have enemies coming towards you, and you've got to avoid them. It's got, and you see you've got kind of a sway to your target here, so you gotta be careful with how you use it. This is interesting. It's a nice little, nice little value add, and it's a score attack thing. So I always like those, right? It's fun. I like what they did with it. And yeah, overall, I just think this is really cool, and its asking price is only $10 US. Considering for a 5 to 7 hour campaign that's reasonably challenging and has some really cool level design and really cool enemy design, and those little extras, that ain't bad, man. I think that's pretty reasonable in terms of what they're asking for this. And, there are a lot of Metroidvanias these days, but it's not the most common genre that you're seeing remade by a lot of indie devs, because it's one of the more complicated ones. And I definitely like to see that some other people are trying that, and this is a nice balance between making one that's too easy, which really kind of takes some of the thrill and satisfaction out of the exploration, I think, and then making one that's just so hard it's akin to a torture platformer, or where figuring out what you have to find and the puzzle elements are so difficult that it's going to frustrate players who are really more for the action and exploration than the puzzle solving. There isn't really a lot of puzzle solving in this, and most of it is just trying to find stuff. And yeah, like right now I'm stuck trying to find a particular item, and it's a little bit frustrating, but because I can move around the world so fast, and I know that if I go through an area and I don't find what I'm looking for, I can just teleport back and start somewhere else. That's really nice. It's not like in old school Metroid where you can spend hours trying to find something and having to trudge through the whole map multiple times and not getting anywhere, That's just, that for me personally, that's not really my jam with Metroidvanias. But with this one, it's pretty cool. So I like it. If you like the genre, definitely recommend giving it a look. If you want something that's I guess a medium Metroidvania, maybe let's call it that. I think that's a good way to look at this. And for the price, really can't be beat. So yeah, that is Biota, and it is out now. I'm not sure all the platforms it's on, but you'll see them in the little title there on the screen. Definitely give it a look. If you don't like Metroidvanias, you know what? This might still be worth a try. If you don't generally like them, but think you could if the right one came along, I might recommend this one, because I think it's a good starting point, and it's one that won't beat you over the head too hard, which is always nice. I definitely intend to finish this. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. I do appreciate it. If you like what you saw here, please do all the normal YouTube things, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think of this, what you've seen of it. What other modern retro Metroidvanias have you liked? There's quite a few of them out there, so which ones have you found interesting? And do you think the quality of life improvements in this one are cool, or do you think that that's something that's going to make it a little too casual for you? I'd be curious about that. And as always, you can follow me over at twitch.tv/pxabstraction for multiple variety streams a week of the retro and indie variety. We cover a lot of indies over there that we don't do on YouTube as well. So if you like indies, that's the place to be. Got a great community over there, and I'd love to see you. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you on the next Indie Ramble. You folks have yourselves a good one. Take her easy.